Correct.
I will move that we accept the site plan application by Genesee County Drain Commissioner Division of Water and Sewer Services, G4610, Beecher, Flint, Michigan, 48532 for parcel 0101126007, zone general commercial and AGRE. And we want to see a follow-up on the photometric plan, but it's not a condition of the whole plan. I don't think we want to make it that way.
Yeah, how should we?
Administrative review?
Yep.
Administrative review with
Sounds
the
good.
photometric plan?
And I think compliance with the reviews of,
Well, that's.
The McKenna ones, though, the facade and stuff, I think we need to add that.
Okay.
So you'll have to include
Yeah, I
that.
don't think you need to include
The
our,
review of August 5th. and Hubble and
Because it's all been agreed to.
August 6th.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I thought they'd all been agreed to, so.
Oh, okay, I thought the other two had not been, so, okay. So then we have a motion, do we have support?
Support.
Okay, so we have motion by Mitchell, support by Mazick. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Mazick,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Ruth,
yes.
McCanny.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So before you say, Ray says he emailed Karen last week and said he was out of town, so.
Oh, okay.
We should make a
Later
motion
on,
to excuse him.
You probably get a couple emails. You might not have noticed it.
It's okay.
It's Ray, you just forget it.
All right, so that will bring us to item number 2, renewable energy facilities.
So, it was brought to our attention recently that an adjacent township was sort of raising issues associated with the new legislation that is restricting local government's control over these different types of renewable energy facilities. In particular, they're talking about wind, solar, and battery energy storage facilities. So we basically gave you guys a memo summarizing the impact of this legislation. Basically, this legislation the state, do we want to put them through the process with our local ordinance? You know, how do we want to do that? And then the rest of the provisions are laid out here. There has to be a public hearing conducted within the municipality, whether it's reviewed by the state or locally. So there's gonna be a public hearing one way or the other, so people will be made aware of the facility. So those are some of the general parameters of the act. The one thing, we wanted to point out was if you look at, page 3, we actually, like page 3, page, 4 and 5, and page 6, basically compares the local standards that Holly Township has with the standards that are in the state act, so you can kind of see how things compare. So for instance, solar energy facilities, Holly's setback regulations for that is 75 feet from the parcel line to the closest part of the solar energy facility. The state's requiring a 300 feet from the nearest point on the outer wall to any occupied building or dwellings on non-participating properties. So that would mean, you know, an adjacent house or an adjacent warehouse or whatever. With respect to public road right-of-way, the state requires 50-foot setback. For non-participating properties, the state requires a 50-foot setback also from the nearest shared property line. So the township, you can see, is more restrictive than some, less restrictive than others, silent on some. But this is for solar energy. I'm not sure that's where you're gonna get the biggest, biggest demand. I don't think you're gonna get a big demand either for wind energy. I think where you're in a position to get some demand is for the energy storage facilities. And that's a standard that we have not yet adopted in our ordinances. Okay? So if you look at page 6 in our memo, it talks about the setbacks in the state ordinance. So the state requires for occupied community buildings and dwellings on non-participating properties 300 feet from the nearest point on the outer wall, 300-foot separation. Okay. Public road right-of-way 50 feet, and other non-participating parties 50 feet measured from the nearest shared property line. So, I guess, what do we do with all this information? I think you should probably consider whether or not you want to do a zoning text amendment that would create some setback standards for these these energy storage facilities. And consider if the standards that are reflected in the state's ordinances are acceptable to you, or if you want to push it a little bit further in the form of a workable ordinance solution. I think those are your options.
So currently our ordinance is still in effect, right? Or what we are saying, other than we don't have anything for renewable energy facilities, correct?
You don't have anything for energy storage facilities.
Energy, yeah, sorry.
You have things for solar and wind
Yeah.
energy systems. You have those in place. The wind one, if anyone came in here to do wind, they would probably appeal it to the state because the state standard is less than the townships. But the reason why there's even this concept of a workable option is because these developers don't want to go to the state, because the state's backed up, it takes forever to get through any kind of process. So if they can get through it in a fraction of the time, they'll take that route and maybe set theirs back a little bit further. So that's kind of a trade-off.
So we already have an ordinance, solar. We have a section in there which is wind. So what we are looking at then is adding a section which would be for this battery energy storage systems,
Yeah.
with the ordinance having the setbacks in there if if we were to have these battery storage systems to be part of, or to be near, or wherever there would be the solar or the wind, correct?
So I'm sorry, you're saying there would be something in the ordinance that would require these energy storage facilities to be located near the solar and the wind?
Well, no, they're
facilities?
not,
No.
they're not located, I know they're not located near. It's basically, we are looking at an ordinance to go along with the solar, the wind and the solar, to handle, to cover us
Yes.
for if we should have somebody approach us that wants to do the battery storage system.
Right.
But currently, if we don't have an ordinance, they'd have to go to the state to get approval, correct?
They'd have
So they would have to
meet
use those.
standards. They'd
Yeah.
have to meet the state.
Okay.
So we'd only do it if we want to be the first line of defense, or before they,
Well, I think it gives us more option and more protection if we can set the standards, set certain standards. I know they can't be more restrictive than what the state is putting in there.
It can be, yeah.
but then they can appeal.
They can appeal, right.
But they can appeal, but it gives us a better,
Yeah, I think we
a
need
better,
to,
better,
yeah.
better, or, I mean,
I
it
think we need to
protects
add it
us
in,
better
but-
as to what we can or cannot do.
Yes.
Rather than them just saying, this is what you have to do.
Right.
Because this is a law.
Yep.
Well, it's a statute, not really a law, but.
And MTA has provided a model ordinance that is basically what is considered the compatible renewable energy ordinance. So MTA has given a model ordinance to the township to adopt. So what I would suggest is we grab that puppy and just goose up the setbacks a little bit, to reflect something that you guys are comfortable with the understanding that it may or may not be workable, and we won't know that until we get the first person to call us 60 days ahead of time. So here's what would happen: they'd call you 60 days ahead of time. They'd call Karen or the administration, and they come in and they meet, and Karen would lay out, what the local ordinance says, and they'd say, okay, we can live with that, and then away we go with the local process, approval process. Or they'd say, no way, we're gonna appeal this.
And again, if we approve it at the local level, they don't have to deal with the state at all then. So that's what they prefer to do, as long
For
as it's
speed,
not very
yeah.
restrictive.
So has any of these energy storage facilities had a thermal runaway? And we know the chemical fallout and where it went, how far it went? Are these setbacks enough to protect? Because you're talking about lithium-ion batteries and cobalt-60 batteries that have pretty detrimental chemicals in them. And that's what they want to put one of these, in the middle of a community. What is the experience out in the other municipalities that you deal with? Is that enough, 300 feet, or do we need 900 feet?
So, it's really hard to answer that, right? Because, I'm not an expert in this particular field.
No, I understand.
I'm more of an expert in terms of local regulations and regulations in general, and economic development also, and alternative energy also.
Yeah,
So you've got the state of Michigan that's competing for these facilities. They want these facilities. They want them. In fact, they've mandated that the energy providers use these facilities. They've said you have to use these facilities by a certain amount, by a certain date, okay? So they're telling them they have to do this.
oh boy.
And then these energy providers go out there to find locations to put these, and there's, gone fishing signs on every municipality in the state of Michigan.
Yeah,
So the state has tried to, and I'm not defending that, you guys, you know this as well as I do, they're trying to thread the needle, find the sweet spot where
Sure.
they can provide local municipalities with a bite at the apple. In this case, this is probably one of the best examples of local exemptions that I've ever seen in my life. Usually they just say, don't even go to the municipality, just do what we tell you and you'll be fine. So this is kind of a hybrid version.
Wow.
We give the locals a chance at it. So to answer your questions, the state is sort of taking that responsibility of figuring out what the right setback is based on, I'm sure, actuarial information, risk management, testimony, and everything else, from insurance companies and, everything else to figure out, are we safe enough?
Well, if the state's involved, what could possibly go wrong?
And the energy storage thing could be more than just batteries. When I looked at it, it looked like it could be other things. Batteries are probably the most common thing, but I thought it could even be anything that stores energy. So
Yeah.
one of the things they mentioned was pumping water up and then letting it flow back down to regenerate electricity. So it's not defined necessarily what that would be. And by the way, I have some property and we've been approached both solar and energy storage. Nothing for wind, and again, I don't think this area because they know that would not fly.
Wouldn't you?
Yep.
No, doesn't
Oh,
say.
are they for wind?
It's just a storage facility. They can use whatever they want. Yeah.
And they just never followed through.
Yeah. It has to be big enough, I think, and close enough to, there's several conditions that have to be met, so it's hard to get all those things.
For sure.
I
Very
know-
controversial in farming areas though, because some
Yeah.
want them and some hate them, so it's really,
Yeah.
I know other communities, they have already been approached, and some of surrounding communities are already working with it. It's inevitable, it could come to us. We're certainly not exempt from that. And I think we do need to be prepared here
Yeah.
so that it fits within our guidelines.
Yes.
Because my understanding is it can be in any zoning. And mostly they need to be by power lines.
Yeah. True.
So I guess if you look at property in our community where power lines run through, it could be a commercial, it could be a residential piece of property.
Most likely
It's,
would
so we do need to have something in place. We need to work through the ordinances. And then the question too, I saw where there's, you can have the compatible renewable energy ordinance, and then you can have a workable, non-compatible ordinance, which kind of caught my attention because it says, it's a workable zoning ordinance is one that doesn't satisfy the definition of the credible renewable energy ordinance. It may have larger setback distances or lower noise levels, but it is one that a developer finds allows them to build a viable project. Indeed, most of the existing wind and solar farms in the state have been built under a workable local zoning and ordinance that includes other regulations that maybe then they would work with us closer.
Yeah,
So-
that's footnote 1 on page 2.
So I don't know if that's something,
That's on page 2. There's footnote 1
Well,
where
I
said that.
yeah, and then I
that's
pulled up
opportunity
some
for the
information
township
on
to
my
establish
own.
its own standards,
Yeah,
and give it a shot.
Yeah, we should draft. Yeah.
So I
What he
would
said.
only say that would be the game plan.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
Let's
my
fire it up.
personal opinion, I would like for it to come before us or council, or excuse me, the trustees before anything else.
Yeah.
Albeit it may take longer to go through the state. I would hate for them to go through the process, give us the 60 days that, hey, this is coming, but we've got it approved through the state. We're just kind of telling your citizens that this is coming. Like, that doesn't jive with me. I'd rather us or our local municipality be accountable for making the ordinance the standards and approving it and having those things in
Well, I
place.
think if they went to the
first,
state,
and if they
it's still-
appeal, they
it
appeal.
still trumps
but-
you.
Right.
If they went and got state approval, it wouldn't matter, right?
What's that?
If they went and got state approval for the facility, even if we had an ordinance, they would just override
No,
us,
they
right?
would have, if you have a local ordinance, they have to go through you
You have to
first.
Oh,
start with
that's
us.
even nicer. Okay.
Then they can
That's
appeal.
always
Then they can go back. All right.
Right, yeah.
But
Do we have some
you know, you're gonna have a public hearing, right? And you're gonna invite the people from the township to come to your meeting where you're gonna decide
Yeah,
on this. And they don't want it.
rather than a public hearing that says, here, we've met all of the state requirements,
Right.
you don't have any control at all, this is coming.
Right.
Hmm.
You're gonna have this meeting where there's the public and they don't want it, right?
Mhm.
And they're gonna come in here and the energy company is gonna look at the standards that you put together, right? And your standards will be maybe, what, 20-50% higher than the state's, maybe?
75.
They still won't want it, right? The public still won't want it, and you're gonna approve it, because they meet your standards. You're gonna be the ones approving it, and they don't want it. You're gonna be approving it. and
I
they
get
don't
that.
want it.
The deadline is November 29th. Do we have any leeway if we go past that, or can we ask for more time, or we have to have something in place by then, and that's
Yeah,
it?
Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
Hmm.
It's just gonna require a public hearing, we'll draft it. You guys will take a look at it and set a public hearing, and then, make a recommendation to the township board, and it'll go to the township board, so it should easily be, September, October to get to the township board.
Yeah, I mean, as far as us approving it or us having that public hearing and people, I mean, we've already got some things in place with the other,
Yeah.
we're missing it on one. So,
Just the batteries.
just the one, we've already got, if someone applied, they would come in front of us for the ordinances we already have.
Well, we should
So already
include
have
all
it.
the three types too.
I get, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
if the public
That's the only
doesn't
thing
want
we're
these,
missing is the
it's
battery.
already a state regulation, so like, either we can make higher standards and have it come in front of us, or they can just go in front of the state for that storage facility. I mean, it's, whether we wanna be the bad guy or be the bad guy for doing
Yeah,
nothing.
I'd
and
make it
having the no, you know.
78.37% more than the state.
We can have
I'll do
tighter
that.
standards, but our standards cannot be stricter than what the states are either.
No, it can
They
be.
can, we
As
can,
you
he's
pointed
saying
out,
we
Under
can.
the workable ordinance.
Under the
That's
workable,
definition
okay.
of a workable
I think
ordinance.
that's
That's where we're
what I
gonna go,
Standards are
yeah.
higher than the state's.
All right. That's
By
good to know.
78.37%, I
Okay.
think.
Good.
And there was a major ballot
Intergalactic-
initiative, to just
intergalactic
make it
fudge
ballot, they just didn't get enough signatures to do away with this. Farm Bureau and some others were quite
Yes.
irate that the state was basically taking away local control. The way I see it, we still have some local control, but,
MMTA, MML, everyone is here.
and some of it was not, this is where they're starting, all of a sudden they'll take away all the other local things, which I don't know if that's true, but
Good.
that's what they're worried about, yeah. Yeah.
I think communities, they were so blindsided because it was signed in right there, Gretchen, she signed it in, you know, the end of November, and then there you are, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the first of the year, and I think communities, you know, they weren't even aware. I'm not even sure when your office or the supervisor's office even was aware that here this is.
Yeah. Probably one of those things that was a paragraph or in a very large
I know.
thing that got approved.
It was an
Yeah.
educational spending bill. Yeah.
Yeah. So steps from here, it sounds like we want to review the ordinances as they stand. I think it would be good to bring that MTA recommended one possibly to review as well. So are we thinking at our next meeting, we look at what the MTA has, our current ordinances laid out, the standards, state standards, and kind of create standards next month potentially for a recommendation to the trustees? Would that be the process for an ordinance change, or?
Well, so, yes, we'll bring an ordinance with you, including all that background, right? And the ordinance will be one that you just fill in the numbers that you want, right? And then once you're satisfied with that, it'll set a public hearing.
Yeah.
So, September, we'll have a public hearing, hopefully in October. And then that would be when you recommend it to the township board, so it's going to be closed in
I mean, worst case, I don't think any of us would oppose possibly to a special meeting if we have to do, to get this done in time. I think we can get, if we can get it done, great, but if we express concern, if we express concern and it needs to get done, then I would volunteer, I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but, I volunteer myself to do a special meeting, you know,
No,
get that
I
done.
certainly wouldn't either.
So, cool.
So my concern, probably for energy storage, is what are they talking about? And it would be the safety concerns
Yeah.
that Mike brought up.
They don't have
That's
any-
probably more so than even our setbacks, that is what's the safety, what's
What's
the
in it?
possibility? What could they do with the energy storage facility? Because when I looked it up, it didn't define it. It defined battery as one possibility, but it sounded like it could be other ways to do that. And so we might want to look at that. And again, he was kind of asking, what's the history with it? See, I didn't even hear about it till we got a flyer asking if we were interested in it. So I looked it up, and there wasn't much detail about what an energy storage facility was.
But just go on YouTube and look up a Tesla fire, and then that's, magnify it by like 1,000.
I don't know,
So anyway, that's my concern, is a little bit the safety part that Mike brought
Yeah.
up, is what would they be doing there? Can we restrict that, so it would be
I
safer for
don't know.
community or something
Maybe
like
they
that?
don't know either. This is kind of new.
Yeah, when I looked it up, it sounded like there was lots of possibilities, but that's the problem right now. with
Well, that's
energy, is
alarming, is how
storing
vague.
Energy,
Yeah.
because we use it during the daytime, and sunlight generates daytime, but we also use it at night when the solar and wind doesn't happen all the time either,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It's the continuity that we need that takes a lot of backup, I think, so they can always supply all energy needs.
Yeah.
And battery storage is just one of those ways to even it out, I think, so
Yeah,
it makes
safety.
sense, but it also needs to be safe for our community, so.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a risk, right? Because if you load it up with, requirements besides setbacks,
No.
they may just say this is not workable,
Yeah.
so we're out. But, so it's finding, what you think, you're comfortable with.
Is there a benefit for having one in the community, or is it just you get one?
No, I think the benefit is you're the front line. You guys-
Well, no, are you saying like, are we, do we get a tax benefit? Do we get
Do we get like electricity in January or
Right,
something? or-
right.
Oh, I see.
Like,
I
or-
think
I didn't see any.
property
Yeah, there
who
are.
owns
Oh, there
that
are?
property,
Oh.
they do.
Yeah.
50% off on our, Property
Yeah,
taxes, yeah.
They have to make payments, I'll give you all that right.
okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
appreciated, John, thank you.
I think fire it up, lace it up, let's go.
But I guarantee you that those benefits aren't gonna alleviate,
Yeah.
it's
Heading
not
to sell off our
economic.
property.
It's not economic.
Well, half of our master plan talks about preservation and things like that, so if that's what our master plan calls for, I like for us to have a say in how that property gets used, so.
For sure, it would be, it'll be an interesting conversation, because we're gonna have a lot of this moving forward as we look at the zoning ordinance to align with the master plan.
Mhm.
So, would you say that 200 acres with solar or wind turbines on it is developed as opposed to 200 acres with 1 acre houses on it? Which one of those is conserved and which one is developed?
Mm.
So those are kind of the gut checks that we're gonna have as
Right.
we look at these different options.
Yeah, we need to check that wind stuff too, because the gravitational waves downstream from wind farms is actually a thing. Solar, just sits there, but, so you have to look at the further footprint impact of what
Yeah.
happens when these have an issue or they're operational issues. And that's some of the things they forgot to tell everybody when they put up.
Well, and then the longevity of the equipment, they're ripping down,
Yeah.
there's ripping down these, wind farm pieces after so many odd years, cause they become obsolete or wear down,
Yeah.
and throwing them in the desert.
So we don't have any of that, we don't
it's
have any of
just
that in
crazy.
there either, right?
So there's been a lot of movement towards, sort of decommissioning standards so that when they become obsolete, how do you get rid of this stuff, recycling,
Can you imagine an abandoned in place wind farm?
No, it's not gonna happen.
No? Okay.
Well,
I could just hear it though.
we wouldn't mind an ordinance that didn't have,
Yeah, it'd be like,
Exit strategy.
get rid of it, yeah.
and then put money up for it, so even if they're gone, the money stays, in order for
Cool.
and no lights on top either.
No lights. No lights. Especially the 460 nanometer light path.
So cool. Do we feel good? We got a plan for moving forward on that? Awesome. All right, so then, reports. Do we have any reports from anyone? Nope. So that brings us to our second and final public comment. Again, members of the public can address the commission for 3 minutes. If approved, for an additional 3 minutes if needed, that may be granted. This will be on any and all items. Your time will begin once you provide us your name and address. Do we have anyone for public comment this evening? All right, hearing none, seeing none. If nothing else, thank you all.
Could we excuse Ray Curtin, because he did,
Yes, I think,
I
yeah.
would make a motion to excuse Ray Curtin from tonight's meeting, so he.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and support. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, we'll excuse Ray. Which brings us,
I seconded.
sorry, Diane.
It went fast.
All right, so that brings us to 7:36, and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.